My daughter called me a selfish beggar online, all because I wouldn't pay $150,000 for her wedding. What started as a simple no nearly destroyed our relationship. Here's how it all went down, and how we barely put the pieces back together. My own daughter, yeah, the one I raised, went online and called me a beggar just because I wouldn't shell out $150,000 to cover the entire cost of her wedding. Hey folks. I'm 44 now, and I've got a daughter named Madison. She's 23 and set to tie the knot in a couple of months to her fiancé, Dylan, who's 26. I became a dad pretty young, barely 21 actually. Just half a year after I got married, tragedy struck. My wife passed away suddenly from an epileptic seizure. From that day on, it was just me and Madison. I made myself a promise, no matter what, I'd give that girl the best life I possibly could. After my wife died, I threw myself into my job like a man on a mission. My sister stepped in to help out at home, looking after Madison during the day, and when I got off work, I'd take over from there. I hustled hard, earned a promotion, and every single dollar I made went straight into raising Madison, making sure she had everything she needed and more. So yeah, looking back, it's no surprise Madison ended up a bit spoiled, and honestly, I've got no one to blame but myself. I always believed I was doing right by her, thinking that giving her whatever she asked for was just part of being a good dad. I could afford it, so I didn't think twice. My sister warned me plenty of times. She kept saying I was going overboard, that I was setting Madison up for disappointment later in life. But I just couldn't hear it. Madison was my soft spot. I couldn't bring myself to say no to her, not even once. I knew deep down it might come back to bite me, but love can make you blind like that. And sure enough, it all kind of blew up about a week ago. Madison came to me and said, straight-faced, that she expected me to pay for her entire wedding. Not just any wedding either, she wanted the full-blown fairy tale. We're talking a $150,000 budget. Yeah, you heard that right. She had plans for a huge guest list, including people she barely even knew but felt like inviting anyway. She had her heart set on some extravagant venue with a fancy banquet table setup, the kind of place you see in bridal magazines. She wanted a custom-made designer wedding gown, tons of jewelry, and matching outfits for all her bridesmaids. The works. Now look, I'm not cheap, and I'm doing alright financially. I've got my own business these days, and we're stable. But still, $150,000? That's not a wedding budget, that's a down payment on a house. That kind of spending would put a serious dent in everything I've built. Maybe even ruin me. So, with a heavy heart, I sat her down and told her the truth. I said, "Sweetheart, I just can't cover a wedding like that. If you really want it, you're going to have to either scale things back or contribute yourself." She didn't take it well. Her face dropped right away. She asked me if I had ever set aside a wedding fund for her, and I told her. Yes, I did. I'd been saving for years, and I had about $75,000 put away. That's a lot of money. Just not the fantasy amount she was hoping for. First off, I honestly never expected Madison to assume I'd be footing the bill for the entire wedding. At most, I figured she might ask me to cover the venue rental, or maybe the catering. Heck, even if it was both, that would have been understandable. But all of it? That came out of nowhere. Second, I didn't think she'd be getting married this soon. I mean, she and Dylan had only been together for a year. I just didn't have enough time to save more money. If they had waited a little longer, I could have set more aside, or maybe they would have gotten better jobs and chipped in themselves. I tried to explain all of that to Madison calmly. I laid it out for her, hoping she'd understand, but instead she blew up at me. Full meltdown. Then she stormed out of the house. She was furious, not just disappointed, but mad that I said I couldn't afford to pay for the whole thing. And yeah, she knew I had money. But what she didn't get is that I just didn't want to dump $150,000 into a single day. I mean, that's a life-changing amount of money, and I couldn't justify it, not for one party. She accused me of being selfish. Said if it were a business deal, I wouldn't even hesitate. But weddings and business? That's apples and oranges. I didn't even know how to explain the difference in a way that would make sense to her, so I just let it be. I felt awful about it, honestly. It tore me up inside. After a few days of thinking and pacing around, I gave in. I made the decision to take out a personal loan to pay for the wedding. I even talked it through with an old friend of mine who works in banking. I figured I could handle the repayments over time, so it didn't feel like the end of the world financially. Madison didn't speak to me for 2 full days. I told myself I'd reach out once the loan was finalized. But then, on the 3rd day, she posted a nasty message on Facebook, called me a broke loser, in front of everyone. She went off on me, called me selfish. Said I was never really there for her growing up, that all I ever did was work. And then, the part that really hit me in the gut, she actually hinted that maybe her mom passed away because of me. That one hurt more than I can even explain. She wrote that I was some kind of selfish workaholic who only cared about myself and my business, yet somehow still managed to stay broke. It was brutal, a total sucker punch. As soon as I saw that post, I blocked her. I didn't even hesitate. After that, I just put my phone down. Didn't check anything for hours, no texts, no social media, nothing. I just sat there, numb. My sister picked up on what was going on, probably saw the post too, and came over to check on me. And when she walked through that door, I just lost it. Couldn't keep it together anymore. I broke down crying right there in front of her. Madison's words cut deep, deeper than I ever expected. I felt hollow. I was down for the count that entire day, and honestly, the next few days weren't much better. I barely spoke to anyone outside of work. Getting out of bed in the morning felt like dragging a boulder behind me. My sister stuck around, bless her. She helped me through it, stayed by my side, made sure I was eating, sleeping, just functioning. She even reached out to Madison and convinced her to take the post down. And she did, eventually. But by that point, the damage was already done. Because now I knew exactly what Madison thought of me. And it shattered something inside me. I didn't even have the words to respond, nothing felt right. So I just stayed quiet. Didn't call, didn't message. I only unblocked her yesterday, once I felt strong enough to even look in her direction again. My sister had already given her a piece of her mind, told her what she needed to hear. But even with that, I knew I couldn't let it go completely. Not until I had the chance to look Madison in the eye and speak to her myself. In the meantime, I canceled the loan. I know, that probably makes me sound terrible, but I'll be honest with you, part of me wanted her to hurt the way I was hurting. I wanted her to feel the sting. I know she's my daughter, and I'm supposed to rise above that kind of thinking, but in that moment, all I wanted was for her to finally understand how deeply she had cut me. I didn't want to just explain it. I wanted her to feel it. So I unblocked her and waited. I told myself, if she wants to talk, she'll call. And sure enough, last night, she finally did. She started off by apologizing. Said she'd just been really upset, and didn't mean most of what she said. That she was frustrated, heartbroken even, that the wedding she'd always dreamed of wasn't going to happen. But the way she said it? It didn't sound genuine. It sounded like someone checking a box. There was a sharpness in her voice. Like she was more annoyed than sorry. And the second I heard that tone, something in me snapped again. I cut her off right there. I told her flat out that I had been planning to surprise her. I was going to take out a loan, just to give her the wedding she wanted. And for a second I heard it, she lit up. She was thrilled. But then I dropped the rest on her. I told her I had canceled the loan after reading her post. That I wasn't going to pay for anything anymore. That if she was so grown up and independent, then she could figure out how to fund her own wedding. Let her take the reins if that's what she wants. Let her see what it's really like. So yeah, since I'm so selfish, I told her maybe she ought to start paying me back for everything I ever spent on her after she turned 18. She started to respond, but I cut her off before she could get a word in. I wasn't actually going to take the money, of course. That wasn't the point. I just wanted her to feel the weight of her words, to feel ashamed of how she treated me. So I said it loud and clear. You know what? Pay me back. Every single damn cent. And let me tell you, that's not a small amount of money. Over the years, I've paid for her college tuition, her housing. She didn't want to live in a dorm like most students. No, she needed her own off-campus apartment. And then there were the shopping sprees with her friends, the pricey vacations, all the things she wanted and just expected I'd cover. Because I always did. She was spoiled to the bone. And honestly, she took full advantage of it. So I told her straight. Pay back every penny I've spent on you, and then we can go our separate ways. You won't have to deal with your poor, selfish father anymore, and I won't have to deal with an entitled, disrespectful brat who forgot where she came from. I was shaking by the time I got those words out. My voice had risen to a full-blown yell. It was like all the anger, all the frustration I'd been bottling up these past few days just exploded out of me in one big, ugly wave. Once I finished, I hung up, slammed the call down. Then I collapsed onto the couch, completely drained, still shaking, trying to pull myself together. My sister walked out of the kitchen right after my meltdown. She'd heard me yelling into the phone, and I could tell by the look on her face that she'd caught the part where I demanded Madison pay me back. She didn't say anything right then, just gave me this look that said she was biting her tongue. It wasn't until later that evening, while we were eating dinner, that she finally brought it up. Calmly, but directly. She told me I wasn't the only one hurting in this situation, and I wasn't the only one responsible either. According to her, I was just as much to blame for how Madison turned out. "You spoiled her, remember?" she said. "She didn't raise herself." And she was right. I mean, hearing it stung, but deep down I knew she had a point. I gave Madison everything she wanted, thinking it was love, thinking I was helping, but really, I was just cushioning her from every consequence. My sister also thought I'd been way too harsh with Madison, especially after everything that had just happened. She said the better thing to do would have been to cut off communication until Madison gave a real apology, not that forced, checkbox kind of sorry she gave over the phone. One that actually meant something. She didn't think Madison apologized because she felt bad. She figured it was probably because other people, relatives, maybe even some of her more level-headed friends, called her out on that awful Facebook post. And yeah, that post was unfair. Way out of line, but my sister said my response wasn't much better. She told me I let my anger take over, and that I lashed out in a way that didn't help anyone. And again, she reminded me, I raised Madison. I created this version of her. That hit hard. Then she brought up things I didn't really want to hear, like how Madison had acted selfishly toward others too. Family, friends, even people she supposedly cared about. And I never really did much about it. Maybe a soft word here or there, a little scolding at best, but never any real consequences. Because I always thought she'd grow out of it. I kept convincing myself it was just a phase. But now that Madison's finally turned all that ugliness on me, now that I've stood in the shoes of the people she's hurt, I can finally see her for who she really is. And the brutal truth? I don't have anyone to blame but myself. My sister said I still had a shot to make things right, to handle this in a way that might have helped Madison grow. She thinks if I had just stepped back and let her sit with her behavior, let her come to her own realization, maybe things would have turned around. But instead, I stooped to her level. I acted out of spite. I lashed out. I did exactly what she would have done if the roles were reversed, vindictive, sharp, and just plain cruel. And in doing that, I didn't make anything better. All I did was make it worse. Now, she's probably angrier than ever, and more convinced she's the victim in all this. She won't learn a thing, at least not from me. My sister told me the better path would have been to ignore her tantrum. Let the silence speak louder than my yelling ever could. And at the time, I just couldn't accept that. I pushed back hard, got up from the table and walked away without even finishing dinner. We haven't spoken since last night. But now, after cooling off and really thinking it through, I get what she meant. I think she was right. The more I look at this whole situation, the more I see it. I've been acting just like Madison. Responding with emotion instead of reason, letting pride and pain get the best of me. And that's not the kind of example a father should set. Still, I can't help but feel torn. I don't believe I'm entirely to blame here. Madison is an adult now. She's got her own mind, her own choices. I didn't teach her to treat people like this, not intentionally anyway. I may have enabled some of it, sure. But she's the one who crossed the line. So here I am, sitting in the aftermath, trying to figure out if I'm the one who messed everything up, or if I just finally stopped covering for someone who didn't want to grow up. And honestly, I still don't know which it is. Update 1. Hey everyone. I've had some time to think, and I want to be honest. I realize I was wrong, and I apologize to my sister. She's the only person who's truly been there for me through all of this, and I can't afford to push away the one person who still cares. She was right all along, and deep down I think I knew it. I just didn't want to admit it, because admitting she was right also meant admitting I failed somewhere along the way as a father. Looking back, I never really took Madison's behavior seriously, especially when she snapped at other people or acted out. I'd brush it off or stay quiet, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of fear that correcting her would drive a wedge between us. I didn't want to discipline her. I thought being the good guy would be enough. But I was too soft. Way too soft. And it backfired. Now I see the result of that. She's grown into someone who lacks empathy, someone who lashes out when things don't go her way. That's on me. I haven't reached out to her since our last phone call, and she hasn't reached out either. Total silence. The sad thing is, she still doesn't understand what really hurt me. It wasn't about the money, not even a little. I didn't want a dime back. What broke me was the way she spoke about me publicly, like I meant nothing. That Facebook post, that was the knife in the heart. All I wanted from her was a sincere apology. Something real. Update 2. Truth is, I should have listened to my sister from the very start. She told me to step back and give Madison space to realize her own behavior was out of line. And now, I completely agree. That phone call didn't help me, it actually made things worse. If anything, it forced me to finally confront the fact that I'd been failing as a father. All these years, I was focused on one thing, making sure Madison never felt the absence of her mom. I didn't want her to feel like she was missing anything in life. So I overcompensated. I poured everything I had into giving her comfort, stability, things. But I see now that I confused providing with parenting. I went overboard trying to fill that void, and in the process, I missed my real job. I gave her everything she asked for, but I didn't give her the guidance she needed. I tried to be her safety net, when what she needed was a father who'd set limits, challenge her, and help her grow. That's the hardest part to face. I could never bring myself to yell at Madison or punish her, not really. And looking back, I realize now that discipline is part of parenting too. Setting limits, holding a firm line, it's not cruelty, it's love. Maybe I wasn't completely wrong in how I raised her, but I was selfish in my own way. I was trying so hard not to hurt her that I ended up hurting both of us in the long run. And now, we're both paying the price for it. I regret how everything went down. I really do. But the past is the past, and there's no way to undo it. As for the money, no, I don't want a single cent from Madison. And honestly, I doubt she ever planned to give it back anyway. Still, I don't regret saying what I said during that call. Maybe it was harsh, but I needed to get it out. I needed to say it. Out loud. Even if it was more for me than for her. That said, maybe I could have said it differently. Maybe I should have softened the blow. But here's the thing, I don't feel like I owe her an apology. Not yet anyway. I'm not going to reach out first. If she decides to come to me on her own, genuinely, then that's a different story. But so far, that hasn't happened. So I'm just waiting. Update 3. So, something unexpected happened. Today, out of the blue, I got a bank transfer from Madison. $22,000. It's been about 4 days since my last update, and we haven't exchanged a single word in that time. No texts, no calls. Just silence. I have no idea what the transfer was supposed to mean. I told my sister about it, and she figures it's Madison trying to pay me back, probably for all the money I spent on her once she turned 18. The adult expenses, so to speak, and honestly, that might be it. But what got under my skin is that she didn't say anything. No message. No explanation. Just the money. Like it was some kind of transaction. And that ticked me off more than anything. So I sent it right back. Every penny. I don't need that money. I never asked for it seriously. I wanted an apology. I wanted my daughter to understand what she did, not throw money at the problem like it could fix everything. And if she doesn't get that, then her money's no good to me. So now, the ball's in her court, again. And funny enough, just a couple of hours after I posted that last update, right after I hit send, the phone rang. It was Madison. She called me, and her voice was ice cold. First thing she said was that she was just doing what I asked, sending the money, and that I should stop making it more complicated than it needed to be. Told me to take the money and not turn this into some kind of circus. I told her straight, I didn't want her damn money. What I wanted was for her to feel just a fraction of how awful she made me feel during that phone call. Let her keep her money. I don't need it, and I sure as hell don't want it. She pushed back. Said that after the way I screamed at her over the phone, she couldn't live with being in my debt. Said it made her uncomfortable. So I fired back with the same logic. After that Facebook post where she publicly called me selfish and a beggar, I was just as uncomfortable accepting anything from her. Because if I took that money, maybe it would prove her point. And I'm not giving her the satisfaction. We hit a wall right there. Neither of us budged. There was this long pause. Then she let out a heavy sigh and said she didn't know what the hell I wanted from her anymore. That she was tired of dealing with what she called my strange behavior. I told her the truth, that I felt the same way about her. I was tired too. Tired of the way she turned everything into a battle, tired of pretending this was normal. Another pause. Then, for the first time, something shifted. She said she'd be open to talking, really talking, if I was actually willing to have a real conversation about our problems. But if I kept acting the way I had been, she didn't see any hope for repairing our relationship. I didn't hesitate. I told her I didn't want some drawn-out conversation. All I wanted, all I've ever wanted, was a real apology. That's it. If she was willing to say, "I'm sorry," and mean it, then we could sit down and talk. But if not, then I had nothing else to say. And with that, I ended the call. She hasn't called or texted since. And honestly, I've said everything I needed to say. The ball's in her court now. Update 4. Hey everyone. It's been a couple of days since I last shared anything, and still, no word from Madison. Radio silence. But my sister gave me an update today, and it caught me off guard. Apparently, Jerry posted on social media that he and Madison have broken up. She was tagged in the post, so that's how our relatives saw it, and one of them told my sister, who passed it along to me. Jerry said it was mutual. But I'm not buying it. If it were really mutual, I don't think Madison would have gone and deleted all her social media accounts within an hour of that post going live. That's not exactly what people do when things end peacefully. It feels like something happened, something deeper, but I can't ask her about it directly. So now I'm left guessing. My sister has her own theories. She thinks maybe the fight between Madison and me had something to do with it, that maybe things got too stressful or emotional, and it spilled over into their relationship. It's possible. But I'm not convinced. Then again, with the way I've been wrong about things lately, who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if I was wrong about this too. Still, no matter what caused it, I can't help but feel concerned. I want to know what really happened. And more than that, I want to be there for her. I'm sure she's hurting right now, even if she's not showing it. But I also know there's nothing I can do. She shut the door. So for now, I'll just try to stay out of it and keep moving forward. Update 5. Well, today I finally found out what actually happened between Madison and Jerry, and it's bad. Really bad. Thankfully, it turns out my sister was wrong. It had nothing to do with me or the situation between Madison and me. And honestly, I'm relieved. Because after everything that's already happened, the last thing I wanted was to be tangled up in that mess too. I won't go into details out of respect for her privacy, but let's just say it's been rough. And even though we're not on speaking terms, part of me still aches knowing what she's going through. I'm just glad, for once, that I wasn't the reason behind it. Update 6. Hey folks. Just wanted to give one last update. A few days ago, Madison actually reached out to me on her own. I didn't have to ask her anything, she sent me a message and laid everything out. For the record, we haven't completely made up yet, not officially. I'm not even sure what kind of place we're in right now, so I won't pretend everything's resolved. But here's what she told me. As I mentioned before, she and Jerry had only known each other for about a year. They met through mutual friends, and when they first connected, Jerry was still dating someone else. But shortly after meeting Madison, he broke things off with that girlfriend, and within a month, he and Madison started dating. A couple of months into their relationship, Madison found out Jerry had actually been seeing his ex behind her back during the early part of their time together. She confronted him, they fought, but in the end, she stayed. She made him promise he'd cut off all contact with that other girl. He even proposed to prove how serious he was about her, and Madison threw herself into planning the wedding, hoping that would wipe the past clean. But just recently she discovered he'd been lying the whole time, still secretly talking to that ex using a second phone. That's when she finally called it quits. It happened just a few days ago. According to Madison, Jerry begged her not to tell anyone what he'd done, especially his family. Said they turned their backs on him completely. He was desperate. Madison agreed to stay quiet, for his sake, and that's why that post he made online said they split. Mutually. But now that I know the full story, yeah, it's a mess. Madison admitted she had suspected something for a while. That's part of why she was so on edge lately. She said that when I told her I couldn't pay for the wedding, it all just came crashing down, and she exploded. She said awful things to me, and she swears she didn't mean them. She also apologized, really apologized, for that Facebook post. Said she regrets it deeply and understands it hurt me more than she realized. She added that she's not asking for instant forgiveness, but she hopes we can start rebuilding something, and that she wants to be a better daughter, and a better person. I haven't responded yet. I'm still sitting with it. I don't know what to say, honestly. Of course I feel for her. And I feel for myself too. Madison's been the most important person in my life since the day she was born, and this whole thing has left me feeling like I completely screwed it all up. But I know I'll write her back. I just want to make sure I say the right thing when I do. I want to be clear. I want her to know that, no matter what happens, no matter how bad things get, I'll always be her dad. I'll always be here. That'll never change. Final update. Hey again. Good news this time. Madison and I finally talked, and we made peace. Things aren't perfect, but we're in a much better place now. She gave me a full apology for everything, and I forgave her. She was already hurting enough, and holding on to my own anger just didn't make sense anymore. She opened up about how badly the whole situation with Jerry had affected her. The cheating, the lies, it really shook her. But she also admitted that even before all this, she hadn't always been easy to deal with. And she owned that. She said she knew she treated people poorly over the years, and she was ready to start working on herself. And I'll be honest, I share part of that blame. I never really gave her boundaries growing up. I never held her accountable when she lashed out at others. I let things slide, thinking she'd grow out of it. She didn't. And now I see how much that shaped who she became. We're both trying now. We're both committed to fixing our relationship, because we know how much we still mean to each other, especially after everything we've been through. I'm not giving up on her, and she's not giving up on me. As for Jerry, well, I encouraged Madison to tell the truth. I mean, the guy promised to be faithful and then turned around and broke that promise. Why protect him? Why keep her word when he never kept his? He needed to be held accountable. And I'm proud of her, because she ended up posting the truth. Things got messy after that. Real messy. Jerry fired back online, and it turned into a bit of a public brawl. But you know what? That drama exposed him for who he really was. Most people sided with Madison, except for a couple of girls who never liked her anyway and just used the moment to stir the pot. Still, she told me she was glad I pushed her to speak up. Said she needed that closure. And I'm glad she stood up for herself. Now we're just focused on rebuilding what we had. It's not perfect, not even close, but it's a start. Madison started going to therapy, and I've begun doing some work on myself too. Truth is, we both needed it. We don't know what the future holds, but one thing's for sure, we're in it together. Thanks for sticking with me through all of this. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and the people you love. Life's too short to hold on to pain. Let me know if you'd like this turned into a full script, podcast-style narration, or formatted like a viral story post.